to the Lord. The weapon that's fashioned against us shall stand. The battle belongs to the Lord.
Hello and welcome to the first in our short series of videos on the armour of God. Have you ever played the whack-a-mole game? I wonder if you ever feel like this cat. As soon as you deal with one problem or issue in life, another rears its head, and on it goes. Priscilla Shirer in her teaching describes going to a fair where there was a homemade whack-a-mole game on the back of a truck. Puppets were popping up out of holes on a tabletop, and children were banging them down with rubber hammers. One child who was waiting got really impatient, so they went up to the truck and they drew back the curtain under the table, only to reveal a couple of people who were popping up the puppets. Now, in the same way, the Bible draws back the curtain and exposes an unseen spiritual world operating, which is often responsible for the moles that are popping up in our lives. An unseen, invisible spiritual world which impacts our physical world. And sometimes to us the physical world can seem to be the extent of our reality, but the reality is that there is an invisible spiritual world which constantly impacts our physical world. And I don't know about you, but I can sometimes spend all of my time dealing with problems and issues, whacking down moles, when actually if I was to address invisible forces that were popping up the moles, I could save myself a whole load of energy. I love this quote. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. The invisible world is actually far more real than the visible world. The Bible says that we have an invisible enemy and that we are in an invisible war. And just as living in a physical war is made easier by accepting that we are living in war times and knowing something of the enemy and how they operate, so the same is true for us. If we don't accept that we have an unseen enemy, and if we're unaware of his tactics, we will be at a disadvantage. If I live in a war zone and I'm not aware of the tactics of the enemy, and I walk out in the day thinking that the enemy only attacks by night, and I'm totally unaware to the fact that the enemy has planted mines, then my lack of knowledge is very likely to put me in danger. Ignorance is not always bliss. Hosea 4 verse 6 says, "My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge." So who is our enemy? The Bible tells us in 1 Peter 5 and verse 8, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." So we're told that the devil is our enemy. Who is the devil and where did he come from? The Bible says that the devil was one of God's most beautiful, most intelligent angels called Lucifer, but he became proud and he wanted to be like God. So he was thrown out of heaven and he took other angels with him. And Lucifer is now God's enemy, and along with the angels that fell with him, who we now call demons, seeks to damage and destroy God's creation, and that includes us. The great news, though, is that we are on the winning side. God is all-powerful. He defeated the devil's biggest weapon, death, when Jesus died and rose again. The victory has already been won. The devil's time is limited, and he knows that, and that's why he's trying to do as much harm as he can. Sometimes when we think about God and the devil, good and evil, light and darkness, it's tempting to have a picture in our mind of a tug of war. And while it might seem like that sometimes here on earth while we're living in enemy occupied territory, we have to remember and be very clear on the fact that there is no comparison between God and the devil. God is the creator. The devil is a created being. God is all powerful. The devil is not. God is omnipresent. He can be everywhere at once. The devil can only be in one place. God is all powerful and all knowing. The devil, although intelligent, he is not all powerful and he is not all knowing. So we have to walk between two traps that the devil would like us to fall into. On the one hand, underestimating the devil, and on the other hand, overestimating the devil. It's like two ditches, one on either side of the road that we walk on, and we can fall into one of those two ditches if we veer off. We're not to fear the devil because God is all powerful. But equally, we should not be unaware of him and his schemes. Paul was not unaware of the devil's schemes. He says in 2 Corinthians 10:11, in order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. So we're not to be unaware, but we're also not to be afraid. Jesus says in Matthew 28 verse 18, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. He continues in verse 19, therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. So we are sent out on our mission in the full authority of Jesus. And the Bible says in Romans 8:11 that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in us. And in 1 John 4 verse 4, he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. So we shouldn't be afraid of the enemy, but equally we shouldn't be unaware. We are in a battle, we do have an enemy, and we need to be aware of his tactics. But God has given us everything that we need for the battle. We have invisible armour and weapons that God has given us to protect us. And over the next few videos we're going to be looking at that. So I hope that you'll be able to join us again as we explore the armour that God has given us. God bless.
Heavenly armor will enter the land. The battle belongs to the Lord. The weapon that's fashioned against us shall stand.